What makes a bar beautiful? It's not what the room looks like when it's empty. It's how the room feels when it's full. What's the vibe? What's the flow? That's what bars are about. Guest experience starts with the employee experience and translates to the investor experience.
Thank you for listening to Serves You Right. My name is Andrew, and today we are talking to Tobin Ellis, the man behind Studio Bar Magic and author of the new book, Bar Design Essentials. Tobin has spent his entire life focusing on what it is that makes great bars great. He has helped build and retrofit bars, everything from huge clubs to giant stadiums and everything in between. He's thought through placements of soda guns to where exactly the ideal range of product is for the typical bartender, and so much more. We get to highlight some of the absurdity of designing and building a bar without having a bartender present, what exactly you need to do to make sure that the bar is able to produce the most revenue that it can, what bars do to the P&L and different aspects of the restaurant, and so much more. So Tobin is awesome. He has really dedicated his life to making sure bartenders and bars are the best they can be. So without any further ado, I'll let Tobin use his own words to sell you on his ideas in his book. Enjoy. Tobin Ellis, thanks for joining us. Serves You Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I've got your book, Bar Design, and what blows my mind, and I hope you could illuminate this a little bit, it seems like this book is common sense, honestly. Like, design bars for bartenders, and that will improve the experience throughout. Why is this book?
Yeah, you would think it is, but it's not. The book kind of gets into the why, and I think it's important for bartenders to understand if they want to impact the bars, restaurants, and hotels they worked at from a design side, to understand the landscape, the players, the process, the constraints. Like, why do bars end up like this? Like, put it this way. How many times do you walk behind a bar in your career? You get a new job, brand new place or not, and you walk back and you go, who designed this? Like, how am I going to make this work?
How am I going to reach seat 8? This doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
The kitchen's over there, but the gate's on the other side. This is half a station. The tower's here, but the glassware's all over there. That's one. But actually, there's the premise, I guess, that general premise, sure. But there's a ton. I think there's like 56 different topics. It's more, it's sort of half theory and why and how we got here and why it should be different, why the industry should change. And then it's at least half of here's how you do all this very specific stuff. MEP, scuppers, ADA, ergonomics, zero step, flow state, zero reach envelope, neutral spine, wellness, lighting, acoustics, like all the stuff that no matter who you are, owner, bartender, architect, food service consultant, developer, investor, if you're going to plunk your money or time into building a hospitality space that serves beverages, this is hopefully a very quick and great resource to go, oh God, I'm so glad I read that. That just saved us 20 grand or we never would have thought of that. That's what we should do. Or, hey, GC, what do you think about this? What do you think about building on a plinth or a curb? Well, here's what I think. And now you're more informed, no matter who you are, to have a smarter, better conversation about what's going to happen so that you can get a seat at the table and get what you want for your team.
I'm going to throw into that mix too. If you dreamed of owning a bar, or you just are a bartender, you're going to be a bartender, never going to leave that spot. It's not a bad lens to always view your next job as which job makes the most money. But now, after this book, I'm going to also think, which bar's the one I want to work in? Not that bar that's you're reaching every day, and it's just like you see them running around frantically when 3 people walk in. It's like, okay, that's probably going to be a headache long term,
That's exactly what happened in my career, which, I bartended for a little over 20 years and started my consulting company in 97. I'd been behind the stick for about 10 years already. And I was 23. I was a ski instructor in upstate New York at a tiny little mountain. I went to apply to be a general manager of a new concept down by where they were building a stadium in Rochester, New York. And they opened the door and I came in, and I had just worked at a college spot where the ice machine broke down, and the owner said, oh, don't worry about it, I'll just bring ice in. Well, he did that for 2 days, a couple igloo coolers from his other bar. And then I was driving to this place called Garofalo's, and I was filling up my Honda CRX with like 30 bags of ice twice to get us through the night every single day. So now I'm in Rochester for this high profile job, this 3-level place, steakhouse, cocktail bar, all this. And I walk in, I said, before we start, can I just check out a couple things? They're like, sure. I break out a flashlight. I go downstairs. I check out the ice machine, the filters. I crawl into the bar. I'm like, I'm not taking another job where the owners don't take care of the place because they're going to expect me to. And if they're not willing to invest in it, then I know they're not going to treat the business or the employees well. We were 30 minutes into the interview, and one of the guys goes, do you mind if we ask you some questions? I was like, oh, that's right, it's an interview. You know, I got the job. They said I was the least qualified, the youngest, but they said, you care about our business. And I'm like, well, you should too. I mean, it's a two-way street. So yeah, I think bartenders are looking for that now, don't you think?
Oh yeah, no.
You're being choosier?
If you're not, you should. Because trust me, my shoulder, like after years, if you're not careful about that, it adds up. I think you had a similar situation. Yeah.
What movie is that where they go through all the bullet wounds and stuff? Was that Bad Boys or something? I don't know. Like,
oh, yeah.
I've got lateral epicondylitis. I've got plantar fasciitis. I've had issues with just about all my physiology because of tending bar. And back then, like, we didn't, like, it's hilarious. So I had a coworker who worked with knee pads. My buddy Ken and I, we were in Vegas working at some of the busier clubs in town. We came in, they sold these, they probably still do, these clip-on speed rail pads. Just because you're digging into your well and you're trying to reach forward to the counter and your shins and your knees are getting just trashed. I mean, you're cooked because the speed rail bars are like these skinny little bars that like dig into your knees and and then your thighs. So we just kind of were like, well, this is what bartending is. Bartending is pain. You know, you just have to work through it and ice your back and your knees. And
you're made of rubber and sunshine at that age, and like, yeah, you just bounce back and you're like, oh, yeah, I'm good to go.
Exactly. I was down in Florida at this very high-end hotel. A client of mine, I was just studying there. They had a custom bar design. And it's a Friday night, and I'm watching two bartenders. One probably, I think he said he was 22 when I talked to him. The other was definitely in his 40s. And they're bartending very differently behind the same bar. So I asked them separately, and I asked the 22-year-old, and I said, how's that? I ask every bartender, I'm very curious person. How is that to bartend behind? Because he had double speed rails. And I was like, how is that? Because I watched him hyperextended, spine no longer in neutral position, like really bad for his body. And he doesn't know because he's made of rubber and sunshine, to your point, right? And he goes, it's good. It's fine. I like it. It works. I'm like, okay, that's it. I didn't critique it or anything. I'm just, taking notes. Next night, I'm at the same bar, and I asked the older bartender, because I watch him working, and he's sidestepping the speed rails. He's bartending over the sink, because he doesn't want to bartend like this because he's over 40. And he comes over when it's slower. And I was like, how's that back there? And he goes, oh my God, there's so many things I would change. He's like, my back, the double speed rails, my shins. I think when COVID hit, so many people like you stopped and went, wait, what am I doing in this industry? Can I be happy doing this? Are the conditions for working, like, should I accept this? And I think I said to myself probably almost 20 years ago, this is insanity that we have no say in the way that our bars are designed and set up. We're delivering most of the profit of the restaurant. We're absolutely central to the guest experience, and it's not easy. You think it is until you hop back behind the wood and you realize, you see a bartender smiling and making drinks and calm, and you realize, oh my God, how are they doing that? Like I go back there with I was back with Bobby Flay behind for his TV show, and he stopped in the middle of filming. He goes, I don't know how you're just doing this so smooth with a smile on your face. I'm lost. This is a guy that's been cooking his whole life. It's not easy, and design should make it easier, but that wasn't the case until it started about 10 years ago. It started to finally, people started paying attention.
And you've been a big part in that, yeah. So it actually reminds me of the absurdity. I was trying to think of a good analogy for this, because bar, is often an afterthought. And I thought it'd be like trying to design the dish pit for the guest experience and not for the dishwasher. It's like, you pretty much, you have one job here. You're washing dishes, and you have someone come in well, should we make it a little bit smaller, make it pretty? You're like, no, you have a clear job here. Make it work, yeah. I do have to say, a fair warning for anyone who reads this book. I read this book while I was on vacation, so flying out, flying back, and it was like a work thing, but they pay for it. You have to go to one meeting, but then you get a couple of days, so yeah, it is what it is. And I think that the central bar in this spot is the anti-design of everything that you wrote. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. It was one of the island bars. They had probably about 3 feet in between the back bar and the guest. Every single night, they pulled all the booze, and they didn't set it up in the same way. And so it was everything you could do to make sure that people weren't in flow But it was one of those like all-inclusive things. So like they didn't care about the speed because for them, they're just giving it away.
Slower is better.
But like every single night I sat down there, I was just like, all of this is different. And they're reaching over and like, it was just wild. So, I do want to make sure we go through a couple of these things. You mentioned 0 step, and I was hoping we could just like hit some of those. What is that? Because I think a lot of bartenders will be familiar with this idea, even if they don't have the terminology.
Well, it's funny. So, 25 years ago, there was sort of a, before we were all super connected, there was just this loose conversation we'd have. I was traveling around the world I kind of set up, my website, Bar Magic, started as sort of a gathering hub for bartenders, period. Whatever you were into, just a place hey, there's competitions here and this bar opened and these bartenders are doing this. And so I traveled the world to kind of just meet everybody and know what was up. And there was this conversation that had already started long ago about 2-step bartending. And the idea, of course, was, that everything you need should be within 2 steps. A lot of pivoting, not a lot of running back and forth, because when a bartender is behind a bar walking or running, everybody's losing. The bartender's losing, the guest is losing, the owner's losing. That's the easiest, simplest way to evaluate a bar. You don't have to be in the industry. Look through a window, look at the bar. If the bartenders are constantly doing laps, and if you get that, I'll be right with you, because they're running somewhere, that's generally a sign of really bad design. It's not anything else. But anyway, so after doing all this traveling and talking about this 2-step bartending, I was like, well, how could that be better? And I'm like, well, 1-step bartending, that sounds like kind of like 6-minute abs.
Feel good productivity or something like that. Yeah.
It's what's the end game? What's the goal? And I realized that like during primary production, when you're actually producing drinks, being really doesn't help you that much. You don't, by no means does 0 step say bartender should never move. That would be terrible. That'd be horrible on your body to stand like a statue behind a bar for 8 hours. We call it the dance. There's movement, but 0 step basically says a bartender shouldn't have to move to perform the basic 80% of the drink making process. They should move because they choose to move and because it feels natural, right? A spin, a little rotate, that kind of thing. But you shouldn't have to like shimmy 3 steps to the left to get to your ice and then shimmy 4 more steps back to get over to your glasses, or walk 6 steps to get to a draft tower. Like, it doesn't matter how efficient your underbar station is if the tower is on the other side of the bar and everyone's walking to it. Or the thing that happens today is the freezer. You have all this super beautiful custom, and then there's one freezer on the back bar that's at ground level, and everyone's bending over, terrible for their body.
Get their martini glasses.
Opening a door, cutting off the flow for the whole bar to grab an ice cube. So 0 step is basically it's a biomechanical bartending theory. It is not a design theory. It's a bartending theory that informs design. So about 20 years ago, I started looking at 0 step and how to consolidate and verticalize and make a bar station and bartending together more efficient and more symbiotic. So when we would train bartenders, we'd teach them things like, I'd put a piece of tape right down the middle of their counter.
Which is brilliant. I wish someone would have told me that. I would have a much better shoulder. But yeah, sorry to
interrupt. Left hand, left side, right hand. Don't cross over. It's for your body, but it's also speed. When you learn, as most bartenders eventually pick up, most of them, when you learn to have independent arm action and you naturally just go towards the thing that's easier, you just get so much faster. And speed equals better guest experience. The faster you can get in and out of the well to make drinks, the more time you have to engage the guest and to connect with them and to do all the other things that are part of hospitality that are so important, that don't just come from banging out, because you got 8 chits coming off the printer in the service well and your rail's just trash. Like, that's half of bartending, right? It's called bartending. Your job is to tend to the bar. You need to reach the bar. So you can't just make drinks in front of you. That's cool. That's great that more and more people are realizing bar design equipment shouldn't hyperextend you, but it's not. Making drinks is half of it. The other half is you need to be able to serve those drinks over a counter. So if your equipment is pushing you back 24 inches, and most human wingspan, P10s, 10 percentile humans to P90s, they only have about a 19 to a 26 inch wingspan, and that's straight out. As soon as your arm starts to lower, you lose distance.
With that angle, yeah.
Yep. So the lower the counter is, and the further the equipment is away from the counter, the less of the counter you can serve. And this is another really big part of understanding what ergonomics really mean behind the bar versus using them as a marketing term to sell stuff.
Yeah. No, and I like how in depth you go. What is it, the Vitruvian bartender? You go even to NASA to get the data of what are the typical people and how do they interact in different spaces? Because, it sounded like beforehand people are just doing like stick figures in there. Here goes bartenders.
T-Rex snow mittens man.
Do what?
T-Rex snow mittens man is what I called them. It's this CAD block that architects and designers all use because they just need to put a reference figure. There's a human back there. And I was actually drawing a bar, and I used them too, like a decade ago. And they have this little, like these little arms are like this. And I put the figurine down over some equipment, and I went, wait a minute, like this is crazy. Like the equipment's not working. And I'm like, wait. I bartended 20 years. Like my hand goes, I know where I'm 5'11". I know exactly what part of the counter and the equipment my hand can reach to comfortably. And that's not it. Mm-hmm. So I looked up there's like 4 different sources you can go to find anthropometric data for human beings. I went to them all. NASA's great because it goes from 1 to 99. And I looked up every joint and body part, and I went into CAD and I took the figures I could find that everyone used in bar and restaurant design. And I just started checking them, and I'm like, oh my God, these are like 4-foot arms, or this is a 9-inch arm, and the head it's just the proportions were completely off. And I went, well, this isn't really a tool. We need a tool. So yeah, that's how I came up with that bartender that's anatomically correct, scaled every part in normal bartending forms that are healthy with circles around them so I drop them on my plans and go, it's an ergonomic check. It's like, okay, can the bartender reach what they're supposed to in this digital bird's eye plan view? Because if they can't even reach in digital, like there's an issue. There's a problem now. So yeah.
It's wild.
A little nerdy.
It's important because it does show that you do have to think through these things. And one of your main points is if you are putting in all this money, if you are creating a bar or a restaurant that has maybe 30% of the profit is coming from the bar, why would you not have someone who's paying attention to the bar, who knows what the bartender is doing somewhere in that process? Even if they just ask the dive bar that they go to after all the planning sessions, like, hey, how's this bar work for you? Yeah.
I mean, you build an F1 car, you involve a driver, you build a fighter jet, you involve a fighter pilot. We're not the only industry. I go outside. Nurses feel the same way. Nurses rarely get to design their own stations. I mean, they're dealing with human lives, keeping people alive, and how things are organized and where their own version of mise en place. It's a little crazy that that's not a more common practice. But once you get deeply into the design world, so my company, Studio Bar Magic, 97 is when I started it. And I'm 20 plus years into bar design, NFL stadiums, world's top 50 cocktail bars, restaurants, fine dining, everything. And once you get into that process, it becomes very clear very quickly, like, oh, this is about life safety, budgets, timelines, and ultimately capitalism. It's about getting this project done and not having things slow it down. And what I learned very early on is, I'd be like, oh, hey, can we move that? I just want to move that whole station over like a foot. That seems easy, right? Just set it a foot over. And then I find out, I don't know then, but like, well, we're already in the CA phase, construction administration. The floor drains were poured 6 months ago. The plumbing's done. No, we can't move that. You have no idea what you're asking. And so one of the things I try to do in the book is to share with bartenders, like, just be mindful of what you're asking. So now I know, I'll ask the question, like, hey, are the floors poured, or where are we? Are we in schematic design? Are we in construction administration, construction doc? Oh, we're at 40% CD. I'm like, okay, so it's late, but we could. Not that anyone wants to.
What are the few things we could do here? Yeah.
We could do it. And then if there's an owner on the call, I'm like, well, let's do the math. Let's take those extra 6 steps every bartender takes times this many bartenders, this many shifts, this many drinks. Quickly do the math and go, yeah, it'll cost you $16,000, saw the floors and move the floor sink, and the MEPs are $25,000. And if you don't do that, you'll save that money, and then you're just leaving $5,000 a year on the table every year for the next 10 years, $2.75 million. What do you want to do? It's not exaggeration. And I think what is so powerful that bartenders have, and managers and beverage directors and F&Bs, that the book tries to help them bring this to the table, is that part of the conversation. Because everyone else in design build, they don't operate. They don't know the numbers. They have no idea what the implications are. They do esoterically, but unless they ran a restaurant, and some of them have, they don't understand the ripple effect over time, the ROI loss of this will take an extra week. It'll cost $20,000. I'm like, that's awesome. A week, $20,000, that'll save
10%
labor
of
hours
1 year.
and
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, we'll get right back to Tobin and Andrew, but I wanted to interrupt just to ask, if you could, please take a moment to like or comment on the episode on any platform you happen to be listening. It really does help us grow. That's all. Right back to it.
Yeah,
Now,
and we need more people involved in those conversations, having the business conversation about the purpose of why are we building this? Who are we building this for? Are we building this for the designer, the architect, the developer? And some people say, yeah, we're building it for the developer. I'm like, are we? Can the developer hop behind the wood on a Saturday night and jump into the service well and handle a ticker tape parade of chits to the floor and knock out 6 Ramos while they've got a full bar 3 deep and people screaming, hey, chief, hey, boss? You know, can they handle that? They need people that want to do that. And the more and more bartenders are getting really picky, thankfully, about what they'll accept as a work environment.
I mean, it's your whole battle against, things should follow the function. The design should follow the function, the inside out. I love how you use the example of a high-end lamp in a nice hotel. It's like, figure out if you could turn that off or on. It's like, every time I'm in one, I'm like, I have no idea how to work this.
You're tired, you've been traveling all day, and like the switch is invisible on the side of the headboard, and you have to know that, but then the next hotel didn't do that. Or trying to take a shower without getting nailed by splashed with cold water before you're getting in. Yeah, I think bartenders and people who have lots of operational experience are so well equipped to talk through the implications of design decisions early on. They're just not always involved in those conversations, or they don't have the depth of knowledge, the vocabulary, the design vocabulary, so they can get shut down really easily, right? And this book tries to help you with that. Like, if you're on a call and someone says, well, we can't do that because, we'll have to redo the MEP schematic. Well, if you don't know what an MEP schematic is, what do you say?
Yeah.
You can't get on the call and go, what's that? Boom, you're done. So you have to go, well, if we're talking about changing the schematic for the mechanicals, electricals, and the plumbing, I mean, we're not changing electrical or mechanical, it's just plumbing. We're talking about sawing a floor and it was already trenched. We're just moving it back 12 inches. So yeah, you have to saw that concrete pad you already poured. Hey, moving that whole station over gives us a place for the bartender to have glassware. And right now you put an ice bin next to a pony wall. So half of their body is doing nothing. The bartender at center, the station and the bartender, they use their wingspan. They should be able to reach things on both sides. If you build a station, I worked at a place like this, a crazy busy bar in DC, 2-floor, 400 seats. And they built a station up against a pony wall on a catwalk bar. So that's like a island bar with no back bar. The one where you're just kind of exposed. There's no back bar at all. We did 400 drinks were in our drink menu. 400 that the whole world knew about. 2-floor restaurant. Everyone's coming down, the servers, to get drinks from the well. We're a 30-seat bar with booths flanking it all around. And I've got nothing from my left hand to touch or reach. And I've got about 20 bottles. Total. If I want a 21st bottle to make a drink, I gotta walk and share the bartender station that's about 8 feet away. So I'm there during the punch, and I said to one of the subs, and I said, hey, is there any way we could put a couple shelves up here for some bottles? He's like, yeah, piece of cake. I'll come in Monday. And I said, great, can I come in and we do it together? He's like, sure. Well, let's do it at 8 a.m. I'm like, great, see you Monday at 8. I show up at 7:30. He's finishing the shelves. And I'm like, oh no. And he goes, I just wanted to get it done. Don't worry, I've done this before. And he grabs a bottle and he goes, see? And it fits between the 2 shelves. And I just went, and I handed him a 285-50 pour spout. And he's like, what's that? I'm like, that's the pour spout on top of every bottle. And so I put it in there and handed it to him again. And he goes, oh, yeah, it wouldn't fit. And it's like, man, like, I get it. Like, this should have been designed different long ago. But even now, trying to fix it, it's still this something in the design build world is it's very adverse to slowing down the pipelines. If there's a structure, there's a schedule, there's a process, and interruptions to that kind of stress everybody out. So the more equipped you are early on during the programming and the schematic design phases to ask the right questions and make sure the actual operational design requirements are articulated and recorded and integrated into the design, the less you have to worry about these kind of things. And that's all I've been doing for 20 years. I've got a 2-hour meeting tomorrow to move 2 frozen drink machines on a back bar because they didn't realize they have air intake and air exhaust, which why would you if you're not in ops? and that you can't just butt them up against a wall or right near each other. And so now we have to redesign the entire back bar to accommodate for these frozen drink machines and still keep the visual balance the interior designer wants, which I agree with. So that's the world that I live in, and I try to just take everything I could, not everything, but there's too much, no one knows it all, but everything I could that gets missed a lot, that's problematic, that gets misunderstood, and give it easy plain English to talk about, but also diagrams, drawings, charts, dimensions, what ifs, and so that anybody can pick this book up, hopefully, and they can just fly through one of the topics and go, good, we're doing custom scuppers. Wow, I'm really glad I read this, or we would have done that wrong.
Yeah, or even just like knowing that everything that you need to grab needs to be 20 inches to, I think it was 82 inches. Like you have that range, and so if you're thinking about putting stuff up high, think twice. Or like there's a reason you don't want it lower than that, because you're going to see everyone slowing down, bending over.
Turning their back on the guest. I walk into bars all over the world, and when I see a shorter bartender, which 50% of the bartending population are female, and their heights are smaller than males. And if I see a bartender 5 foot, 5'4", my girlfriend's bartended 20 years plus, Vegas and New York, she's 5'4", she's a complete assassin. And yet, when I see that, I always wait, and then I just kind of lean in, and I'm like, where's your step ladder? And they always laugh. I don't think I've ever asked that question and they've gone, my what? They're all like, hang on. And then they go pull the little fold-up stool or the step ladder, and they show me. Fanciest bars in the world, busiest bars. It's there somewhere. And that's crazy that a bartender needs a ladder to reach the objects that they need to sell to keep the business moving.
Yeah. It's like designing a kitchen and putting the grill upstairs. Like, what are you doing? I do want to get into some of the specifics if we can, because I think that your examples and your description of the well itself, the dangers. So I think two of them would be sharing something and mirroring. I thought both of those are like, they seem on paper to make sense. Why would you want to go through the expense of having two, I don't know, towers of beer? If you're working on this beautiful bar, why not have it mirrored? Because it'll just be nice and symmetrical, and everyone will write up in magazines about how beautiful your bar is. So like, why are those such dangers?
Sure. All right. Well, let's start first with sharing. So the example I use all the time that resonates immediately is I said, they say, well, we're sharing this piece of equipment, or we're sharing this back bar stuff. And I said, great. I said, do me a favor when you finish up the construction documents, go into your office with a coworker. I'm going to give you guys 2 computers. You get 1 keyboard and 1 chair, 1 desk, and the phone is on the floor in the corner. But smile and be productive and get those drawings done quickly. And everybody laughs. They're like, that's absurd. I'm like, what's absurd? Sharing the tools you need to do a high volume job that you use all the time. Sharing equipment really does not ever help a business. It only hurts it. Now, obviously, you cannot have 2 of absolutely everything behind a bar, but you can get pretty close. You just have to have a conversation with someone in ops who understands things like restock, right? So there's always going to be a compromise. If you want this part to be bigger, then this part has to be smaller, or the whole bar has to get bigger. So which one do you want to change? It's a lot of question asking in design. It's not telling people. It's like, we can do whatever you want, but one of these 3 has to change. Well, we don't want to make the bar bigger. Okay. Then we need to make the ice bin needs to get smaller. Well, we don't want the ice bin smaller. Well, then, what are you taking away that's going to hurt the business?
Can we pare back on the booze selection just by a couple of SKUs, or, that sort of thing? Yeah.
Yeah. So a little bit on the back bar. You're not going to carry 2 of everything on your back bar, right? You don't need to. It's the Pareto principle. It's 80% of what you use that you need the most should be 2 stations, so that you're not sharing. Sharing, when owners put 2 bartenders in 1 station, that only works if both bartenders are extremely green and slow. Like, they don't have any idea. It's their first week on the job. They're picking up every bottle and staring at it anyway. Like, what's this? Oh, is that Tito's? Then fine, slam them both in a central station. But in the well and at the point, that's where you put your ringers. That's where you put your bartenders with experience. And putting a second person in their way, it does not speed anyone up. It's a weird math. Well, if I put 2 bodies in that station, I'll make twice as many drinks. You'll actually make about 1/3 less. Don't get a great bartender. Don't throw a second bartender in their way. I mean, you're constantly just reaching and spinning and moving.
And I mean, so personally, just so you know, it's dangerous if you're not careful. If you have the wrong person there. I don't know if you can see it, but I have a scar here from I had another bartender. We weren't sharing wells. We had separate wells. He's watching the bar top. I had the well that had the whole restaurant and all the bar tables, and broke a glass in there. And he's like, "Hey, I gotta come get some ice." Didn't think twice about it. And as he's flipping the bottle up, I was going down for something and just clocked me. Yeah, I think it was Christmas Eve. Yes, so
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, a little bit of blood and a concussion.
Yeah, lifelong
consolation prize. Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah.
So mirroring, right? Okay, so this one's real. So let's go down a rabbit hole because this one's fascinating to me. I couldn't figure out my first couple years in design why designers were so obsessed with mirroring equipment. Because as a bartender, you're like, that's insanity. And for anyone who doesn't bartend or didn't think about it before, this is what I tell the designers all the time. I'm like, all right, I'm going to come to your driveway and I'm going to switch your car out every day. On Monday, you'll have a car with the American style. You'll drive on the right side of the road. You'll have your gas and your brake, and it'll all be on the left. And then on Tuesday, I'm going to come to your house and I'm going to switch your car. The steering wheel is going to be on the right. The gas and the brake are going to be transposed. But get to work on time. Don't be late and don't cause an accident. Like, you can't do that. You can't. Your brain is doing so much unnecessary thinking, and there's no thinking in bartending. It's reacting, right? It's just what we call muscle memory, which is really procedural memory. It's the brainstem consolidates the learning so the body can do it while the brain scans the room, talks to the guest, etc. And so when you mirror a station, now on Monday, my drain board's on the left and my sink's on the right, but on Tuesday they're swapped, and you go to reach a glass and your hand's in a sink and you go, oh, that's right, I'm in that other station. And so what's hard for designers to do is they're not doing it because they're trying to make it harder to be behind the bar. They don't understand. Two, it is wired into our DNA. Symmetry is the number one animal signal for health. That's why we think symmetrical faces are attractive faces. Go look at all the most beautiful people that have ever been. They have perfect symmetry, unlike some of this, right?
Yeah,
Symmetry
well, I got a scar too, so yeah.
Yeah, symmetry is supposed to be beauty. It's a gestalt need for symmetry, and it says that there needs to be a reflection point, and everything has to mirror off that. And it is an important design tenet. There are absolutely designs that require symmetry. Bar equipment is not one of them. So repeat the stations exactly. This is on the left in this one, so is this. That's on the right, so is that. And repeat them, don't mirror them. And it's really not that hard to do. And once you get used to it as a designer, you don't think twice about it. And it actually, when you see a mirrored station, you're like, oh, man. Because what happens?
Now that I know, yeah.
You manage. Bartender comes in and goes, I can't work that station. That station's terrible. I like this one. You don't want bartenders having favorite stations.
Yeah. No, that is one of the good things we do. We have the mirrored stations. The one that people want to work is the well because it's off to the side. You don't deal with the guests, so you just make the drinks for the restaurant and don't have to talk to anyone, which,
you have
every once in
repeated
a while,
stations, right?
You repeat it, yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And actually, I was going to ask you about this too, because we have 3 repeated. We always do 4 bartenders, but they take care of the lounge. So it's like one of them almost works as a cocktail server. So it's like,
that's a common model these days, and that's great. It works so well. I mean, someone goes, hey, what single malts or what agave spirits do you have? And they're like, oh, well, we have a Tobin mezcal, and it's made grows wildly on the north face of the mountain, and like servers don't know that. And a bar, they're like, wow,
my server's great.
Super helpful. We'll take 4 of them.
And in that instance too, it takes the number of seats they'd have from 16 to, with the added 24, 40. Like, you need a way to make sure they make money, because if you want bartenders that are good, they need to make some money, Otherwise, they're not going to keep showing up. Yeah.
100%. And that's another reason why bar design is so important for an owner or manager or an F&B. When people talk about doing hotel refreshes and renovations, and I do a ton of those, and, I'm involved in a property and they're like, oh, we don't need you to work on this other space because we're just doing an aesthetic refresh. And I'm like, do you want to make more money in there, or just get that 3-month bump because you renovated and people want to come see what it looks like once? What do you mean? I'm like, well, let's look at it. Like, let me go in there. I'll do an evaluation. I'll give you data points. You look at it. I'll tell you what I see. I'm not here to sell you stuff. I don't want to redesign something that works really well. That would be a waste of everyone's time. But when I see things like, I did a resort long time ago, the Greenbrier in White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia. It's one of the OG 5-star resorts in the country, the Broadmoor, the Camelback, and the Greenbrier. And their lobby bar, the design was 2 bartenders. They're nowhere near any back of house support. They've got one station, no glass washer, and the station is in the far corner. And I'm just like, they're like, well, this is a American historical landmark. It's got landmark status. We can't change anything. I'm like, oh, I've done landmark. You can change stuff. It just can't look any different, and you need to get the city, the county, or the state's approval, which we can do. We have time. So we put in 2 stations. We put a glass washer in the middle. We bumped the bar out like 9 inches so things would actually fit. Didn't change the aesthetic at all. Got all the approvals. It's insane. It was like 230% increase in revenue. And it's real. I mean, and as a bartender, you're like, well, duh, you put twice the production stations, and now they weren't walking a half mile every time they needed to wash a glass. I mean, their bar back was never on that bar because they were constantly schlepping glasses through the back of house that was upstairs around a corner. So, you know, the business implications of thinking about that and what should change or what shouldn't, it's not just for new construction. It's look at your bar right now. I wonder how many hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars you're leaving on the table. And that translates to how many hundreds of dollars a night is the bartender are they not making because they're wasting time just doing laps and getting their cardio in instead of pumping out drinks with their head up, scanning the room, engaging meaningfully with guests, and having time to connect with them to build that culture and that vibe and make the party, right?
Yeah, and I'm just thinking, you know, at any night, if you took, you know, average, you know, it is a steakhouse, so people aren't like getting smashed or anything, but average night, if you just took everyone from 1 drink to 2, it's like you work 2 shifts. I mean, yeah, that's not counting food and everything, but yeah, it is.
No, I love that.
I think that is cool too, because you have a really good, I think, breakdown of why when bars at peak volume, the P&L, you can see it grow in real time. And I was hoping you could kind of go through that because I thought that was super cool. A really great illustration there.
Yeah, I mean, you just nailed it, right? So the difference between food and beverage from a business point of view, no matter if you're a bartender or an investor or anywhere in between, a manager, you really have about 3 different basic things that you should notice, right? So number 1, your kitchen costs are always going to be higher in almost every way, which is tough. 2, unless you are taking a raw product like grain or a cow and you are butchering or you're baking and you're making it yourself, there's not a lot of profit in food. There's really almost none. It's only through volume and scale that you can get that profit. The profit margins on drinks, on the other hand, can be enormous. And so that's something to notice. You've got lower costs and higher profits on the bar, but you have a magic silver bullet that everyone who runs a bar business should be very cognizant of, and that's the idea of flow through. I used to interview bar managers and ask them if they know what it is, and they all say, yeah, it's flowing profit through to the bottom line. I'm like, but how? You know, do you really understand this, or are you just good at interviewing? And the idea is that when you get to peak volume, right, in a restaurant, once you're on a wait and once every table set, that's it. You cannot increase sales minute by minute, hour by hour. Your pace doesn't change. Because as much as you might think it would be nice to not have to wait for a table, if you walk into a dining room and stand behind someone else's chair, just stand there like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm just waiting for someone to take my order, get a menu, I'm going to have dinner. Get away. You can't stand here. It's exactly what happens in a bar. Bars can keep filling up way past the seat. 2 deep, 3 deep, 10 deep. And that's part of the excitement and the fun of being in a lounge or a bar is that together or that alone together stuff, right?
Versus like the coffee shop, I think is your example.
Exactly. That's
we're together alone. Yeah.
And together alone. But at the bar, what's happening is every time more people come in and they're ordering more, you're not increasing your labor cost. You're not increasing your utilities. The only cost that goes up at peak volume with that increased revenue is your cost of goods. That's it. So your total cost for that extra drink is way lower than the one at 2 and 3 and 4 in the afternoon. Your profit margin is going from whatever it is, 25.6, whatever you call it, up to 60, 50, 60, 70%. It's almost all profit. And the beauty of the bar is, no matter how good the food is, unless you got a table full of sumo wrestlers getting training, nobody orders a round of ribeyes and goes, we'll get another round. Yeah. But they do that at the bar all the time.
It has happened to me once. The fact that I remember it is worth it. I just still remember the girl that went to the table and she's like, how is everything? They had 3 steaks and the guy said, I think we're going to need another round. And she's like, ha, 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 ha. And the guy was like, no. And she's, oh, you got it. And like, that is the one time. But how many people at the bar have been like, I'll take another all the time? It is.
If they can get one, they know it's not going to be painful to get the bartender's attention, to order, to wait for the drink. And the first thing you learn, or at least I did, the first thing you learn in the bar is like when a guest sits down at the counter, an invisible wall goes up. Your job as a bartender is to break that wall down and connect with them. And it doesn't mean you have to we were taught to shake hands and all that, but it doesn't matter what it is. That psychological wall that says, you know what it's like. We sit at a bar and you're like, what kind of experience am I going to get? Like, I'm not going to be buddies with this bartender until I know they're going to pay attention and they know what they're doing. So your job is to both connect with them as a human, but at the same time, they need to have some confidence that you're paying attention and you're good at what you do. Well, I don't care how good of a bartender you are. If someone puts you in a terrible design, you will not look like you know what you're doing. You'll look like you're chicken with your head cut off, and it's not your fault. The design is causing the problem. So, more than 20 years ago when I started doing custom designs and this whole idea of follow the human form bar design, which is where the cockpit I have with Perlet came from, that I designed for them 10 years ago. The whole idea was, if I can help design, with all of my experience from all these different parts of the industry, an ergonomic station that has everything you need in this zero-step idea with a neutral spine and a neutral reach envelope so I can actually serve the counter and make the drinks. A bartender doesn't need to know any of that technical stuff. The design should make them faster. When you get behind a Porsche and you go onto the highway, or you're on the Autobahn, you take a bank curve, you feel it. Like, this car is helping me drive better. A great station, a great full design, not just the station, makes the bartenders better without them even realizing it, and they shouldn't have to. Tools should make humans perform better, and that's what I've devoted my life to for a couple of decades.
Yeah, it's like whoever came up with the first pour spout, we shouldn't have to reinvent that. It's like, we did this. We're a little bit faster now. Move on. Yeah. It is wild. It is wild how often these things are not paid attention to, but that's the...
But so there's some real challenges, and to be fair to architects, interior designers, food service consultants, dealers, everyone else, this is the side the book dives into that bartenders need to know. Like, okay, great, and why wasn't I involved? Well, you weren't hired yet. Yeah. You didn't exist. And who did the design team get to coordinate with? Typically, it's one or two people from the operation, from the hospitality group. And that's actually smart. Every once in a while I get on a call and there's like 10 to 12 people from the client side, and you have to you don't get anything done. I mean, I had a call recently and I had a very high level executive on the call who wanted to make sure everything was on schedule, and they said, where do the cups go? And it's my job to explain it. I'm like, okay, on the drawings where it says drain board, that's where all the cups will go. And there's nothing wrong with that, except these are if this is how we're going to have design meetings, we're never going to get anything done. I mean, you don't want people who are fully uninformed to be part of these critical meetings, because this isn't the only project we're all working on. I've had more than 40 designs in design at one time. Last couple of years, I did 150 some bars. I don't have time to explain to a senior executive SVP of something what each minute little thing is, and it's already annotated on there. So there is a resistance to having people in meetings and in design decisions that will kind of create problems that don't need to exist. Like, well, what if we put a ladder back there? Like, we're doing the ladder thing again. And then you have to explain workers' comp, OSHA, the time it takes to go up and down, the danger, the ladders don't work the way you think, people trip over them, the extra costs. Why do we have ladders behind bars? And I'm not knocking on anyone who has a ladder back bar. I'm just saying that shouldn't be a design fix. That should be concepted in, and someone that's going to work behind that bar has to go, well, wait a minute. Where does the ladder store when no one's on it that's not in the way of coolers, POS, back bar, glassware? What's it made out of? Is it that antique, those rusty train wheels that it's loud?
That's not going to work out really well. Yeah.
And it's really hard to move, and who's going to clean those bottles that go up to the ceiling? And those are the kind of conversations that I'm trying to help as many people in ops be a part of, so it's not just me and a handful of other people who think deeply about bartender workflows, what it really takes to make a drink, not what you think it makes because you think it's easy.
I mean, that's a good point too. It's something I wouldn't have thought about, but I forget who said it. You go to any park in the US and there won't be any statues to committees. Get too many cooks in the kitchen and nothing gets done. It is funny that you chose the ladder as an example, because we have a ladder, but it's in the wine room. It's in the wine room, so it's a little bit more like it's not in anyone's way, and it's because the wine is stacked to the ceiling. So I don't know how we would get it otherwise.
Well, a wine program, that's kind of like, especially with your place with mahogany. I mean, you have to have a crazy number of SKUs.
Yeah,
that goes with a steakhouse, a high-end premium steakhouse like you're running, for sure. It's funny you bring up the wine room. So the cockpit. So I did a custom design in 2005, 2006. And it was the first time I was able to have a client let me custom fabricate exactly what I'd been working on in my head for more than a decade. And we did this cockpit. And what happened is we had done the regular bar engine. And it was one of those places, it was in a little upstate from New York City. And it was one of those places where like it becomes the nightclub. Like it's a waterfront restaurant, but as soon as it gets dark out, like that's where everyone in town goes. It's the club, it gets packed. And this was back in the day when your meese was up on the bar top and you were muddling. We weren't batching, none of that stuff. Mm-hmm. Very light batching. And I'm like, this place is going to get crushed. You can't serve these. You're going to have to pull the menus at 10 o'clock at night. There's no way all these bartenders that are new to mixology and work in volume are going to be able to handle this.
Muddling passion
So I'm looking on the plans and I'm like, what's that thing behind the bar, like that tower? And he goes, oh, that's the wine tower. And I was like, all right, tell me more. And he's like, well, we're going to put all the wine there. And I'm like, why is it behind the bar? And he said, oh, I just saw it in Vegas. And I liked it with the wine angels. And I'm like, oh, Ariel, where they had the wine angels, the women that went up on cables and grabbed your super expensive bottle of wine, super theatrical, Vegas. Like, I'm like, I lived there. I was like, yeah, I totally familiar. So you're going to have wine angels. And he's like, oh, no. I'm like, so how are people going to get the wine bottles on top? He's like, well, we'll have to put a ladder in there. I'm like, all right, you hired my company to do all this. You know, you want to be one of the first cocktail bars in your whole area. Is wine a big part of your beverage P-mix? Is that the plan? Because we didn't talk about that. He goes, no, but we want to have wine. I'm like, can I have that space? He's like, what do you want to do with it? And so I laid it out. And so not only did I put a cockpit back there, but it was elevated and it was behind the bartenders. So the beauty was at 9 or 10 o'clock at night, you flipped a switch on the printer and the frontline bartenders, now we were brigading this a little bit. The frontline bartenders were taking all the orders, pouring the shots of Jaegers and all the Bud Lights, ringing everything up, having fun with the guests. And they got 8 mojitos. They just rang first. 8 mojitos goes up to the best cocktail making bartender on the staff who's elevated above the whole restaurant, giving theater, making cocktails. It was a service bar for the bartenders behind the bar.
Which is
so
awesome,
they make the easy part of the round. They turn around and there's 8 mojitos perfectly made with their yerba buena, and they pull them over, set them down. That'll be $106, and they move on to the next round. And by people seeing the drinks being made, it's sold drinks. It's like the fajita sizzle, right? So that was informed. I took a wine rooms. Apologies.
No. I mean, that's cool. That's one of the cooler examples that you have in the book too. I think that owner and that conversation leads me to one of the things that really struck me in the book. It seems like a lot of these conversations, a lot of these ideas, it's just that you need to clarify what your end goal is. Because it seems like there's a lot of like wishful thinking when it comes to bar. You know, we're going to have a 30% breakdown with bar, and then you come in and it's like, well, how are we going to do that? You know, like have anyone thought through that? It's just like, we need to make 96 cocktails an hour. Okay. You know, like.
And ring them and serve them.
Yeah.
And tour the menu and serve food. And I think it's like, so there's a really important part of the pipeline that a lot of people aren't aware of, because bartenders will say all the time, like, oh, the architect. I'm like, the architect probably didn't design the engine and what equipment you have and how it's connected and where it is. They might on a really small project where they're kind of an all-in-one architect. They're design build, they're architect, GC, designer. But the larger the project or the better, typically, everyone is specialists are in their role. And there's a category of people, they're called food service consultants, right? And the kitchen consultants too, they're called sometimes. They're sort of a different field a little bit, but they're really good at designing kitchens, and the bar tends to come with it, the bar package. And they understand they are so important to have on a project. They understand MEPs and schematics. They understand code and how things have to be built, and they're very good at managing the timeline, and there's so many details to coordinate. And having someone like that, they will understand some of this at a more mid-level, not just top level. But even then, when you get into the nitty-gritty, when you start talking about like drinks per hour and what's the beverage P-mix, LBW, and when you can just see the eyes glaze over, you're like, oh, okay, nobody on this call is looking at that. It's not trying to push people towards that. It's just saying you care about, like, you said, like, well, why would you have 2 draft towers, or talk about that? Well, if you think you're going to do, let's say, a really high beer percentage for a cocktail bar, and you're going to do 20, 25, 30% beer, you're saying that 1 in 3 or 1 in 4 drinks is a beer. And if people see a tower, we know that people It's changing, but they gravitate towards draft. Oh, what do you have on tap? I'll just take that, and we don't want to stop the bartender to sit there and rattle off the list of the 30 micros that we carry in the cooler. They can't
time that night.
Yeah. So we know they're going to order that draft. Well, if you spend all this money to make this hyper efficient station, but it only speaks to liquor and it doesn't speak to wine or beer, especially beer, you just built back in all those inefficiencies. So instead of putting one tower, or instead of putting two towers and splitting and carrying 8 beers and putting 4 on the north tower and 4 on the south, if you want 8 beers, you should have 8 faucet towers twice in exactly the same order, equidistant between all the bartenders, so they're taking the fewest steps. And the glasses they need to pour those beers should be right below, adjacent, or one pivot at most behind them, so that the process of pouring multiple beers is not, I have to bring a glass with me, pour one beer, hold it, find somewhere to set it down, and repeat. That's a level of minutia, a level of micro movements and workflows that only ops people, and typically only people with bar experience, would have, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
You started as a dishwasher, right?
Oh yeah, back in the day. Dishwasher, cook, and server all at the same time. So
that's
it's the middle of nowhere, Texas.
You got empathy for everybody.
Yeah, right? Oh man.
I started
Smoking
as a
Joe's
dishwasher
Bar and
as
Grill.
well.
Yeah.
What's that?
Smoking Joe's Bar and Grill.
Smoking Joe's, I love it.
It is.
I started as a dishwasher as well. And I worked on a machine. It was conveyor belt. It was meant for at least 2 people. It was in a college campus. It was just got slammed. And I worked it by myself most of the time. So it was like a video game. Load up the dirty side, run around and pull off the conveyor belt, the hot plates with bare hands, because gloves make things slippery at that time. Pull them off, stack them. So you get, I have no feeling in my fingers anymore.
Oh, yeah.
And so when someone put that machine in and they designed that dish pit in that room, they were thinking correctly about the volume that this property had to do. But they weren't having conversations about true labor plan. Because everyone cuts labor sooner or later, right? When it's slow. And it's like, have you optimized your design behind the bar or anywhere in the restaurant so that, yeah, it crushes at peak volume. It's perfect. Everyone's in flow state. But what happens when there's one bartender back there? Which is very common. At the end of the night, the beginning of the shift, slower shifts, when things change, seasonality. How does the bar perform when the labor plan changes? None of these people have time, even if they understood all that, to think about that. That's my job. And that's the job of anyone who wants to be a bar designer or be heavily involved in the process of bar design. Your job, you don't have to be an expert on plinths, curbs, gypsum walls and vapor barriers and all that stuff. That's not your job. Your job is to bring in that operational specific know-how that's crucial to meeting the business's goals and making sure that is articulated as a design requirement and that it makes it into the design. And hopefully the book helps with that a little bit.
I know. I was going to say, if I'm listening at home, where can I go to get this book?
Yeah, Amazon. It's just Bar Design Essentials by Tobin Ellis. And it's on Amazon. And that's the print, the hardcover. That's this here, 250 pages. And there is an ebook, but it's only on Apple Books, digital. It's a little less expensive. And that's because Apple is great at it. There's hundreds of images and diagrams and drawings in here. And Apple's great with that. KDP, Kindle, not so great at that. So there's no Kindle version, and you wouldn't want it.
Yeah, you want it to be pretty. It is a lot of awesome pictures, and I don't even have the finished one. I just have some of the stand-ins, I think. But yeah, super great. If someone reads this book and they're like, this is a lot, and I don't know if I can handle this, how can they go and find you so you can take care of it for them?
Absolutely. So yeah, you can just go to barmagic.com and find me, or Tobin Ellis Design on Instagram, very easy. But also in the book itself, right in the table of contents, this isn't like 5 chapters where you don't know where anything is. Every single one of the 56 topics, you just scan through and, I want to know more about how to build a die wall, or I need to know about ergonomics and flow state. Boom. And you just hit, it's a couple pages each section typically. And you just get that information, that drawing, that diagram, chart, and you're off to the races. So it's a reference book that you can hopefully use the rest of your career.
No, and it is really great that just die wall is a great example. Later on in the book, it's like, if you're skimming or if you're just reading the sections you need, die wall is XYZ. It's like, okay. So it does help you kind of skim around and see what you need in the moment. And when that contractor says you need a 3 sink and, go to that section and all the above. And it ends with your rules, I think you said, for bar design. But if it's okay with you, I wanted to end with one of my favorite sections. So I printed it off. It's wallpaper and light fixtures do not make people happy. Service and hospitality do. So I think it's one of those things that you got to think about the people that are taking care of the people that are making you the money if it's your bar.
Exactly. It's about taking care of the people on both sides of the bar when you design, and that's why the subtitle is How to Design Bars That Work for Everyone. And that includes everyone who designs and builds it and everybody who has to inherit and operate it. Because I think for me, 30, coming on almost 40 years of traveling the world, loving the bar culture and bartenders and the bar world and being a big part of it. To me, what makes a bar beautiful, it's not what the room looks like when it's empty. It's how the room feels when it's full. What's the vibe? What's the flow? That's what bars are about. And that can't happen with an uninformed design. And the more bartenders who are versed in and able to help architects, designers, food service consultants, investors, operators understand the details that make all the difference, the better the whole industry gets in every possible way. Guest experience starts with the employee experience and translates to the investor experience. Everyone knows that. Now there's a tool, hopefully a resource. You don't have to spend thousands and thousands of dollars to hire Studio Bar Magic or anyone else. You can inject a little bit of that wisdom and experience and expertise into your next project right now just by picking up a book on Amazon. That was why I wrote it.
Perfect. Tobin, thanks for coming on today. If we're ever in the same spot, I want to go out and buy you a drink and we'll watch the bartender hyperextend and see where their step stool is.
No.
Should be a fun time.
You gotta turn it off. No, we'll just enjoy it. We'll just rock a couple Negronis and talk about steak, and we'll talk about some Biondi Santi and some of your favorite Italians.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Roy.
Thank you for listening. That is today's episode. Now, if you have not taken a moment to check out our website, please do. It's servesyouRightPod.com. We have past episodes and all sorts of other things there. If you want to get in touch with me, that's the place to do it. I do appreciate that you've given me your most valuable asset, your time and attention. So thank you for listening. And stay tuned. We have some really cool guests coming up. I would hate it if you missed it. Cheers.